Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the South-afrifur Pawdcast. You're listening to myself, Ivik Wolf, with our special guest in Archantael and Scratch. Hello
Yeah,
to the two of you.
I'm always here.
Hi. Sorry.
No worries. Always good. So, today we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of a large amount of things with other things involved and the things that Archantael does. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Cool.
There's technically, I thought I pronounced it wrong because it's a Celtic name and it's meant to be pronounced Archantael.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing it written down, thought, oh, it's Archantael, and it's not. So
Archantael.
way is fine. You can't pronounce it. You can't really pronounce it wrong, and I don't mind either way.
Oh, can we just call you Archie?
Arc is fine.
Arc is fine. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. All right. So, for those of you who don't remember Arc from the last time we had him on, he is a writer. He's been writing a whole bunch of books recently. You're busy working on one right now, not mistaken.
Yeah, well, actually, I finished the manuscript, and now it's just it's at my publisher who's putting it through its edits, and then I'll get it back and have a stiff drink, and then it'll be on the way to getting published. I'm looking at sort of first quarter next year.
Okay, so I mean, and like it always seems like it's a stressful process to continue to write books, and especially is this like a follow-on to one of your to your series?
Yeah, it's the third in my Resonance tetralogy series.
Yes.
It's, even though it's the third, it's actually technically a prequel. Covers earlier events that happened.
Okay. So it's kind of following Star Wars lore.
Yeah, to a degree, and then there'll be one and a half more after that, because I got a little novella of bits that didn't get into the other novels that I'll be writing too.
Okay.
It's a little anthology kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Little shorts.
Awesome.
And let's see, what other projects have you working on?
Well, I'm making my first fursuit for about a year. That's been kind of crazy to get back into techniques that I never actually got to handle the first time around. So that's been kind of nerve-wracking, and I've suffered several lacerations and stab wounds and stuff like that. So it's always a bit of a grisly business.
Fun.
So long as it doesn't become too much to bear.
Haha, it's not a bear.
Well, if you... I'm gonna
Quit badgering him.
For fuck's sake.
Okay, I'm just typing something out here so that I can tweet it. Tweeted. Okay. Woo. Okay.
So quickly, just as a recap,
yes.
what is your what's your series about again? Just to recap for the audience.
It is a young adult fantasy series. I could actually read the blurb off the back of the book, but it's over there. It's a young adult fantasy series starring a young fox empress called Faria, who can manipulate elemental powers using crystals that have come from the moon. Father goes missing, and she has to, pretty much by herself, but she rallies a few friends along the way as she goes, to uncover secrets of an ancient lost city and try and find her father. And all the stories revolve around that and the legacy of an ancient cataclysm.
Fascinating.
Very actually. Like what?
Yeah.
Scratch. Like
No, I know I know, make it sound like a little bit condescending, but this is actually
fascinating.
Really good. Yeah, I didn't mean to be like, oh, fascinating, how droll. I didn't mean to be like that. It genuinely sounds interesting.
Thank you.
We do actually want to buy a book from you at some point. I will do this. I will actually download something, find a way to buy the thing tomorrow, maybe. Yes.
Well, the good news is that we can actually, my publisher just updated their website, so you can actually order ebooks and paperbacks worldwide from the site direct, which is cool.
Sweet. What's the site for those of us who are interested?
Who's your publisher?
Is www.inspired-quill.com. So you search for Inspired Quill, it should come up.
Okay.
I think they're on my Twitter page too.
Is this like a non-furry publisher?
Yes, ostensibly, but they're very friendly. They're LGBT friendly. They publish all kinds of genre fiction, especially they're trying to focus on marginalized authors and just being more kind of diverse and ethically and ecologically friendly. They're a small press based in Derby in England, and they are very, very nice. They always respect the work. And because the first thing I was really worried about when I came to, what if they don't like furries? I guess I didn't call them furries at the time because I was trying to deny that I was one. So I was like, what if they don't like animal people? And they say, well, you should just make them elves or whatever. But no, she was very, Sarah, the director, was very, very nice and very like, I love these characters. They're like, yay, because I don't want to change them.
So, I mean, what led to the like choice? I mean, obviously you. Okay, I think I'm gonna put these like things into sort of space for myself. It was the idea that because you hadn't accepted the idea that you were furry yet, you approached a different publisher, the Inspired Quill people.
Did when I was first submitting it, I was just applying to regular publishing houses because I thought I just want to be an author. I want to be a fantasy author that writes. Except I didn't call them furry at the time. I called them anthropomorphic animal stories.
We all did.
That was my denial phase.
I had to have that one live, okay? Just
Yeah. Okay. Fine. You've had it now, and now we're done.
But yeah, because I just wanted it to be. I mean, I still want it to be successful, but honestly, and this is kind of a little bit beyond the way, but I found a lot more reward in the furry community being part of it than trying to it without being part of it, like exploitation, I guess. So honestly, embracing it was one of the best things I've ever done. But yeah, to start with, I was just touting it as a fantasy book, kind of like Redwall.
I mean, Brian Jacques has to be a furry, though.
Can you say that about anyone who's ever worked for Disney? In the olden days, the golden days of Disney?
Yes.
Like, were they all furries?
Probably.
Can you say that with 100% certainty?
Do you remember that this is the same group of people that literally, like, wrote the vast majority of every single Disney-inspired porn out there?
Come again?
There's apparently a massive vault filled with like art and things like that done by the artists because they worked for Disney. All of the art that they created that was not safe for work was vaulted because it belongs to Disney.
Fascinating. This is like 9 levels deep kind of thing. Like, where is this vault? Like, why did they even keep it?
Maybe now they own Fox, then we'll start seeing some R-rated animated Disney movies or something like that.
I could just imagine this as like, I don't know, what's his name? Who's the guy who used to work for Fox that shouted about turning the freaking frogs gay?
Oh, does he even work for them still?
That guy. No, I don't think he ever worked for Fox. He's the InfoWars guy.
Yeah.
But I could just imagine like an animated version of him just randomly shouting on Fox News.
Mm-hmm. Why would he do that in Conker's Bad Fur Daily? Great Giant Poop.
Oh yeah, definitely. Huh. But enough about that person. Because how is it? I forgot. Anyway.
We don't need to give him the publicity.
Yeah. It's okay. It's bad enough that Fox has news. I mean, entertainment.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, like, with the work and things like where do you I know that we've probably asked this question like 100 times, or you've been asked this question like a whole bunch of times, but would you ever, for instance, like create storylines and things like that for things like animated pieces and everything. I'm gonna say
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no. I don't really put a cap on my imagination. So if someone gives me characters and a story to work with, then I'll be glad to work with it. I think as long as I'm passionate about the story, then yeah.
I do actually want to ask a quick question. So there's been something that has been sort of put to me as a person who might want to consider doing writing, but ghost writing to the point of like, what's the word? 12 to 15-year-old semi smut that you would find on Upwork.
Okay.
Like apparently this is a thing, and I just want to confirm because apparently what happens is that you can go into Upwork and you pretty much find like stories to be written here for, you know, teens and young adults. And pretty much they give you a storyline, beginning to end, and then all you do is provide filler. And you work at like, what's the word? Something stupid, because obviously we're South African, so this is actually stupid, like insanely large amounts of money. So you'd probably be working at like, what's the word, $16-17 an hour per page or whatever the
That's
hell.
good even for the US, to be honest. That's more than I make at my retail job.
Yeah, so I mean that is something you can look into if you're ever, you know, looking for doing that, because apparently like people are just churning out books like left, right, and center for Yahoo stuff. Like maybe I shouldn't necessarily talk about this, but then again, go to Upwork, get money. Apparently, write as much as you want. I'm making sure that I don't necessarily need to do this for anything, but like apparently this is a market. This is a market that they're asking for writers to ghostwrite everybody's novel. Like this novel comes out, you ghostwrite it, and it gets published, and you get paid an amount of money.
That's
Like
really interesting.
yeah, apparently it comes up to like, I think, what's the word? I'd need to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it comes up to like 5,000 rand, 6,000, maybe even 10,000 rand per
book.
book.
Wow,
Yeah, so about $500.
that's not bad.
It's pretty good. Like, and apparently one of the people that I was talking to about this, who was telling me about this opportunity, obviously can't say anything about the book, can't say you wrote it, can't say you did anything to it.
Yeah.
Like you're held by contract to not talk about that. But yeah, literally, that's how much they pay if you do a good job. And like apparently you can do it like over a week. Kind of bull. Yeah, like you literally, somebody comes up for a storyline with you, you provide filler.
This sounds like a decent job opportunity.
Yeah,
Is it like minimum?
it's
like
like
to be? Does it have to be? Does it have to be longer than a certain amount of words?
I think if I'm not mistaken, like something like 50,000.
Okay.
Possibly less, maybe 20. But there's an amount. They literally just all the premises on there. Go onto Upwork, you can find them there. There's also editing jobs, everything like that. These people are paying. Apparently, it's peanuts to them, according to some of the people who worked with them. They're like, "Oh, you need more money?" Kind of cool.
If only.
I won't. I was very close to doing that thing again. But yeah, so
Yeah, my money's on it's gonna happen regardless. You doing that noise. You watch a movie once and suddenly it just sticks in your head.
I love the character, okay?
Fine.
He's cute in a very weird kind of gangly. I don't even know.
Schizoxian.
Yes. But in any case, so like there are these opportunities out there, and it's something that you can do and get money for it. Like it's because there aren't many people who are willing to, I think, dedicate their time to books that aren't their own. But then again, if you're willing to, I guess, because my main reasons why I don't want to do it, but I do want to do it, but I don't, is the fact that I'd be selling a skill that I won't be credited for because I'm getting paid large amounts of money for it, but I'm sort of selling my penmanship for nothing.
I mean, I think if writing, just the act of writing, is a passion, and this is a means of all that passion, I think it's great, especially if it gives you time or opportunity to work on what you actually want to work on.
Mm.
That's kind of what any job is, really. It's you live, you don't live to work.
Yeah.
So I think any opportunity that you can, if it's fun, then that's cool. I think the nice thing about creating something for yourself is you're not necessarily capitulating to anyone's voice but yours. It's authentic, and you can be as outlandish or lewd or like comedic as you want.
Mm-hmm.
But that the only issue with that for me, and I don't know if this is how the site works, is just whether you potentially get any conflict with the commission of voices or anything like that. But I mean, that's all part of the sort of editing process anyway. But there's definitely something more rewarding for doing something for you.
Because I think there's actually it's a two-prong attack anyway. It's literally ghost writes the book, and then somebody ghost edits it as well. Like it's massive company, apparently Amazon and others.
Really? Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazon's there, obviously Amazon with their books and stuff like you could literally, I don't know. I think honestly on a month by month basis, you can go into Amazon and try to find new releases and then like take off popularity, and you'll probably find like at least 2,000 books just randomly there.
Yeah, I mean, Umi got his
Do
book
they not have
published through Amazon.
any author attribution at all when they come to sale?
I think the contribution is taken by whoever the hell the publisher is.
Okay, so this just becomes a book by, say, not Random House, but like this is a Random House book with no author on it.
Maybe something like that. Maybe there is an author connected, but it's just not you as the writer.
Yeah. Or maybe they have like a, for want of a better term.
Badge has a wonderful comment here. I heard those titles written and edited by ghosts are absolutely spooktacular.
Oh, no.
Badge? Collective groan. He's giggling like a school.
As he should.
Tell him to get back to his team fight. He's losing the game for them.
No, he's looking at Ubisoft publisher sale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Stuff that we can't afford.
If that's truly what he wants to do with his life.
Yeah, but I mean, so yeah, his team fight is over. Did you guys win?
No, we lost.
Douche nozzle. Okay.
Who's being a douche nozzle?
Oh, it's Elisan. Oh, him. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so this is an actual market. There's a market for literally ghost writing the entire novel. I'm on a completely different planet right now.
Yeah, apparently, like you're ghostwriting the whip, and then you're nobling, and I don't know what the hell is going on with you today.
At the end of the day, it might just be ghostwriting the novel, but we'll talk about that because I'm not sure if English people.
Yeah, he made a knob gag.
Yeah, sometimes I turned it. Any case, so one of the things that we do actually also want to talk about here, I know that we've been rambling quite a bit, but that's kind of our style, 20 minutes of ramble. Yeah, me.
Hold on, it's check yourself.
Okay, but yeah, so one of the things that we do actually want to talk about with you, Ark, is that like since I think, and it's not been between the 2 points that like since we started talking to you to now that like you've become more of a voice. It's just that it was one of the things we didn't necessarily focus on the first time we spoke to you, but like you've been sort of writing blogs and things like that about either communities. I think anime was one of them as well, considering that you've as well as the cosplaying community and the furry community and things like that. So you have this broad experience of what these communities are like, and you've recently been sort of talking in, I think, in the last 2 or 3 parts about like the changes within the communities that you've seen, some of the things, some of the people who've been talking, raising voices and things like that. Maybe we just want to gauge a little bit as to sort of in a general sense, where exactly do we see the furry community right now?
Right now, I think it's in a good place. I think it's always been, well, I can't say it's always been in a good place because I haven't times when I think it wasn't. But I feel that sorry, I'm just taking a second to generate my thoughts because my thoughts go faster than my mouth can generate.
I know
That's why
exactly how you feel.
Yeah, except you don't have a filter.
Yeah.
I think it's in a good place, and I think it's getting progressively better. It's still not perfect by any means, and it's for a place to be perfect, it takes constant work. And I think that complacent and think that it is already perfect, then that's when you start getting resistance to new ideas, to changes, and things that should be happening. Any kind of passion, any kind of thing that you're involved in are always assessing its value and its contributions and the contributions of those around you, then you're always going to be they're always going to be bringing it to a better place. But that doesn't mean it's bad. And I think that that's where a lot of people get. There's criticism levied at a popular figure or something like that. They think that that means that about that is bad, and it's not. Like last year or so, I feel like there's been a lot of people have been emboldened and encouraged to call out abusive behavior, which is great because you're not getting these missing stairs in the community who never get addressed but always cause problems and force people to, new voices and things to kind of just slink away because they don't feel like they're being listened to. So how are these people being called out for being abusive or being, services or, running scams or something like that? But to a lot of people who don't want to think about furry is perfect as it is, conflict of, well, does this mean for, that's ruined my perception of this and this, and they feel kind of a death of the fandom, whatever they go on about. But
I mean, that would especially be if they're following a vast majority of the fandom it's sort of catered to. Yeah, and especially the more popular big names that have been well established over time, the more of those you follow, and the more of those you focus on, to get popular without having a certain amount of not narcissism necessarily, but you got to have a self-investment. And I think that there are people who really push themselves to the fore all the time are very self-invested. But that's a really good thing. I mean, especially as you're an independent artist, you have to be the one that advocates for yourself. But it shouldn't ever come at the expense of someone else's well-being, and that's where people get confused as to not knowing the intent behind someone's or the process behind someone's popularity or position or something like that, and then reading into the assumptions about how someone got there to fit what they want the fandom to be. It can be a very damaging mindset to get into. I kind of spoke over you for a bit there. Okay. Because, I mean, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I mean, there have been many people who have been called out in some senses. Some of them have sort of apologized. Some of them not apologized. Some of them sort of shirked away, whatever.
Some of them left the fandom, quote unquote.
Yeah, that as well. And I mean, it's not like it's an internationally well-known thing. It's not like it only happens in America or it only happens in Europe. Only the big only the big states may apply. mean, you look at South Africa, we have very, very similar sort of ideas in respect to that. Like some people sort of get called out for something. Oddly enough, it almost seems like it's the only thing we do on a daily basis. You know, this person has said this thing about this person. Ha ha! Look at that! Look at them!
Drama,
Point and laugh.
fucking drama everywhere.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, it's a very fine balance because I know some people have always said, you know, keep drama and politics out of the fandom, and you've got other people who are saying like, no, but drama and politics are what the fandom is made up of. Embrace it and sort of like it's sort of an idea of, you know, finding your voice and then maybe sort of leaving it after somebody tells you to leave it there. But and I don't know, it's a very, very fine line. A lot of cons are actually dealing with this as well, maybe in their personal capacity, and it all depends on their personal choice, and that in and of itself makes it very, very difficult to sort of barter with, in that, you know, you may not necessarily have shown your shitty side to me, but the fact that you showed your shitty side to other people makes us wary of you. Does that mean that people like that would be allowed into sort of platforms or things like that, barring that they don't do anything stupid?
I don't think. I mean, if someone wants to wants to go to a con or whatever, there's little, unless they're actually presenting a threat, or enough people say, look, he's really not the kind of or they're really not the kind of person we want, then, you know, they're probably going to go. You know, the thing is, it's not necessarily, and it's never really been about we want the people to leave. We want the ideas to change. We want the behavior to stop. Like, there have been people that I follow who were members of like the furry raiders and something like that, who've said, yeah, crap, and I shouldn't have done that, and I'm really sorry, and I'm trying to make amends, you know, and that's great. You know, actually making a viable and tangible change is what we wanted. It's calling out the behavior, not necessarily the person. If this had been like, if people had taken the criticisms or statements or just observations to heart and said, oh, that I need to work on myself a little more, that little bit of humility would go a long way to preventing a lot of this, you know, quote unquote drama from happening in the first place, that creates what people see as a toxic environment, when really it's just the reaction of people who don't want to be held accountable for what they do. That is a way that we have a conflict with, like, treating apologies. Some people don't treat apologies well. Some people treat them like a victory and a defeat and will like parade it around. You know, you got to have kind of a respect for yourself, both in like in taking on what other people say and also in how you treat other people.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. I think it's a very fair way of going about it. I mean, the weird thing is, and I guess this is where sort of down to is that some people are willing to listen to another person's argumentation, listen to the way that they're speaking, irrespective of what they're saying is, I guess, volatile or in any way sort of accusatory. If you sort of raise, what's the word? If you raise problems or if you raise issues in a non-confrontational way, which is something people should be able to know how to do now. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I would advocate that people do debate club at least, you know, a year of their high school, even primary school tuition, particularly because they need to know how to argue, and they need to know how to argue in a way that's going to be as
and be able to tell the difference between an argument and a confrontation.
Yeah. Because the weird thing is, and here's something that I've actually been seeing very, very, especially now that I'm in a position to semi-run a debating club for my campus. It's this idea that a straw man is okay. If I can get away with putting a straw man up and hoping that people attack that instead of my actual values, that's how I win. But one of the very first things that that happened when I was actually at debating club like a whole bunch of years ago at my old campus was, if you put up a straw man and then they continue to attack that, they're not attacking the issue. That means that they lose. Which is the
Okay.
way that I think people should actually be arguing. That if you've gone out of your way to put up a bad faith argument, and people do attack that, for instance, because you, in the goodness of your heart, I guess, truly believe that that's what the person is saying, only to have it sort of like have the rug sort of thrown out from under you, that means that the argument and the conversation that you were meant to have has been wasted. And if you're doing that, you lose the debate. I'm not sure if I've made any sense.
I think you've articulated it quite well, but yeah, like, so putting up a straw man is essentially like,
It's a bad faith argument.
it is. I mean, it's not tackling the issue that you want to tackle in the argument, and essentially putting you on better stance for winning the argument.
You still with us, Ark?
Still here. Sorry, I'm
Alright.
just thinking.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
I'm not really super experienced with the mechanics of debate. It's kind I did public speaking for about 3 weeks in high school and was terrified, and then never did it again.
Sounds about right. I hate
Mm.
public speaking. Yet
I
here I
think-
am.
Yeah.
I would rather tackle the issue directly and know thoughts and feelings are to assess them, because an argument can be presented ways that people. I actually had an argument with someone at work this morning, like a face-to-face confrontation about
Mhm.
someone who was trying to advocate for the recent executive order about free speech on college campuses.
Okay. What was that? Because I don't think I've heard about this.
So our lovely president
Beautiful.
introduced an executive order that would force college campuses to encourage free speech on campus. And, you know, the subtext of that, the context is that a lot of conservative speakers were being protested out of paid or promotional speeches and stuff like that by people who did not want them there. And I was trying to say, well, look, freedom for speech is not freedom from consequences. And actually, these colleges are private institutions that have every right to say, actually, we don't want them there, because the students have free speech as well. They have the right to say, this guy is rubbish. This guy is, and he was saying, these arguments deserve to be heard. And I was like, well, that's not free speech. That's enforced speech. That's kind of forcing people to listen to things that are directly harmful,
And then paying them to say it.
and exposing students to it as well, like actually involuntarily putting students in an environment where they will be subjected to hurtful views and hurtful language, and where they may be at college to find a means to escape that from their lives,
But
because you can't
then-
escape your identity. You are who you are.
Yeah.
Um,
But how would you sort of? I mean, it's because I can see where the argument would come from. Is that like we shouldn't we shouldn't pedestal this, but shouldn't that also mean that we shouldn't pedestal any of it instead?
The
Yeah, but
thing
you
is
try
that
making a nuanced argument in this fucking day and age.
Yeah, fair.
the problem is that like hateful speech is not free speech, and this is the problem is that it's not so much about. It's kind of like a lot of the people you get who say debate me don't actually want an exchange of ideas. They just want to tell you what they think, and they just want to impose their ideas on you. It's not really about debate for them. It's about
Verbally 1v1 me.
yeah,
One me.
like they're just trying to get their views. They're trying to get you to agree with what they want you to think.
Yeah.
Not a debate. That's just
Verbal
it's just
jousting.
force. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a I'm trying to think of the word where you're just, it's like coercion, basically. It's pressure. It's it's speaking over people. And that's essentially what this issue is. I had this big argument with him, and the problem is I'm not necessarily very good at articulating things firsthand because I don't have information with me. I like to know that what I'm presenting is correct. So I feel like if I present a straw man to someone knowing it's a straw man, then I've kind of deflected away from a truth that would actually convincing if it came direct from me and the information that I actually want to impart on someone in order to change their behavior, in order to get them to see actually this is bad and this hurts people, that I want to be always putting across, because I feel that there should always be a truth to something that you passion for other people. I don't think that's something you can ever kind of substitute. You can switch it around and say, well, what if it happened to this guy? Or what if it happened to this guy, or what if your son or daughter, because that was another thing that came up at work. It's a very colorful place. This woman I work with was saying that she didn't want her son to be gay because there was a guy living with her ex-boyfriend and something like that. And she was saying, I can sleep with ladies all I want, but I don't want my son to be gay. And I was like, you really don't get it, do you? So, what I would want to present information about, you realize that people of color suffer, like especially LGBT people of color suffer the highest suicide rates pretty much out of any demographic. And like, you understand that these standards are not the same, and that essentially this is like very overt homophobia, in that it's all right for you to indulge in something that to you, but as soon as it happens to someone else, you don't want that life for them when they have a right to choose it.
Yeah.
That I don't feel like a straw man would be as effective in that, because it wouldn't really be tackling what I wanted to embrace, I guess.
I mean, and you see it so often in the furry fan where, and it's something that I've also noticed quite a lot now with the sort of advent of, far to say it, like public appearances on relatively high level or high ranking television shows, where like there's this idea, and in South Africa the exact same thing happened, where beginning to tread a lot more carefully in respect to what kind of side we show. I know that I'm sort of slightly changing tack, but the idea is that where I'm trying to go with this is that, like, I mean, we have these sort of arguments and these ideas, and the person in the public facing furries, the ones that are willing to stand in front of cameras, obviously hold private ideas, ones that they themselves will, irrespective of whether it's out of goodwill or anything like that, just out of personal perspective, want to say what they want to be able to say. And it comes across sometimes as, I don't know, and it's something that I felt myself, because there's a show that might be coming out in South Africa. Hopefully it'll be subtitled. I think it is.
I think it should be.
Yeah, it's on a show called Kwela. And
Can we have a slot on that?
Yeah. They're gonna see my face. I was sweaty that day. It was hot.
You were in a suit. Of course you're going to be sweaty.
Yeah, but I don't cool down as well as other furs do, apparently.
Other human beings.
If it's any consolation, I am sodden whenever I'm in suit. I'm never dry. I'm never dry.
Yeah, I apparently don't dry out until like half an hour after I've taken it off. It's the same thing. Like if I've gone for a bike ride, I've started, what's the word? I've started coming to work half an hour to 45 minutes early, so that I can have a warm shower and then turn the water down to cool, in a very sort of terribly bad attempt at trying to cool myself down further, because as soon as I hit steps walking upwards, I'm back to stage 1 again. It's like the shower never happened. Very high core temperature. It sucks. It's great for winter. It sucks in summer.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. I feel you.
But so, any case, like, and so we have more public facing people, and it's getting to the point where the people who I think, honestly, who I think should be speaking out more to media, more to like things like that, aren't actually sticking up their hands. So we have is, I guess, groups of people sort of do it for personal gain. In a very sort of not, it's sort of subversive. It really want to do this for personal gain, but if it's going to give me personal gain, yes. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of disquieting sometimes, because there are times that you'll say something that isn't necessarily right, but it's going to be in that final edit, and you're going to be the person who's going to have to carry those words. Not only do you carry the words for yourself and your own character and your face, you carry those words for the rest of the community that you belong to a group of people who know nothing about it.
Yeah. I like that one
And
CSI episode.
that as well. I mean, or that other person who went on to like, weird dating talk show thing. Who
Did that actually happen? I heard it was going to. I didn't know whether it did or not.
No, there was. I think there was a couple. There was a person who went on to like one of those Jerry Springer, not Jerry Springer-esque, but same kind of midday talk show
Maury
bullshit.
Povich.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it was a disaster.
imagine.
I think I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that our social responsibility does outweigh our need for personal like gain out of a talk show like that, or whoa?
I mean, things should really start with the space immediately around you, whether that's kindness, or whether it's just listening more. I think, or just opening up personally. I think everything has to start with the space immediately around you, and the world will never revolve completely around you. I think if you have something that will actually be of great benefit to people, there's no reason that you can't go forward. But I think to just assume that you have the best of everyone's interests when we are all individually just never ever going to be the full story. It's never going to be the full representation. And I think there are a lot of people who kind of they do make it about themselves. Like sorry, I'm
Gathering thoughts. Don't worry.
Perfect.
There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful in a community that means something to you, like whether it's as a YouTuber or as a writer or an artist. You're going to be producing something that gives people joy. It's perfectly fine to produce something that is frivolous that other people like, because that's essentially art. It's not essential point of view necessarily, but it is from like a spiritual point of view or an emotional point of view. It can be incredibly necessary. So I think that there are people who do have that ability to give to other people, but I think simply because of the nature of who they are, the generous people, the compassionate people, they're always going to be doing more work in the spaces that they can directly affect around them than how they can be a wider voice, because the wider voice does lend itself to that more kind of, not necessarily egotistical, but it is a little bit more opportunistic, I guess. Necessarily going to be someone who focuses on the potentially their own authenticity or like the growth of the community.
Yeah.
A lot from just YouTube trends generally, because you get a lot of these same things that are like this meme and this meme and this meme and this meme, and not many of them are kind of unique. But I think the only way it can really be unique is to actually focus on the individuals anyway, but that obviously takes away from the focus of the one. There's that kind of inherent catch-22 about something to the whole community, really about myself. It is very tricky because the community is amazing and diverse and rich and infinite worlds within each of us about what we believe and what we feel and what we consume and what we create. And you can never ever sum that up in one person. And I think that trying to, because everyone has different ideas about what furry should be and what it shouldn't be and stuff like that. So I think it's always going to be community-led effort and not just having one figurehead or one person. Because I pretty much guarantee you ask anyone who their favorite furry is or who the most famous furry is, you're going to have every single time. But you will start to see like certain people come to the forefront for just because of reasons of accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, and it's weird that as soon as a person can't defend themselves, will be people come out of the woodwork to attack that person almost immediately. I'm talking, for instance, about somebody like Fred Patton, who I remember mentioning. This is about maybe 2 or 3 weeks after he'd passed, and somebody had mentioned, you know, he wasn't necessarily the best figurehead of the furries. Pretty terrible person. And I'm kind of sitting there going, like, are you not necessarily just sore? Why is it that you wait until this happens rather than actually having the conversation with them and like sort of having the conversation on a public space, for instance? I mean, Fred was in many senses very open to a large amount of ideas, and I mean, hell, even we had a podcast with him about things like this. At times, we sort of spoke about mostly his career and everything like that. But I mean, he seemed very willing to actually have a conversation, and that's the one thing is that somehow, somewhere along the way, without asking the person what their view is about something, you will make up a stupid story about who they are and their character and attack them personally because you feel somehow threatened by their existence. And that I've never really seen, or at least that's something that I see in the fandom, but everywhere anyway, that people just character assassinate without actually approaching you at first. Like it's that entire thing. It's like I raise some far liberal ideology on any of my social platforms and I get attacked and shot down by a whole bunch of other people. Fact of the matter is that nobody's going to approach me and say, or rather approach me in good faith. And I think maybe that's the way that we should look at this, is that the idea of approaching somebody about their argumentation has to be in good faith. Otherwise, you're not going to get the answer that you want. And you're not going to win the argument either. So you're literally already playing towards a stalemate.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't want an argument to... Yeah, again, it's not... They don't want an argument, they want a confrontation that they can win.
But you don't win. You lose immediately.
Yeah,
People...
No, not to the public. Not to the... Like, as soon as... I don't know. Like, as soon as a conversation starts sort of becoming defensive from any one side, that side seems to already have sort of lost. It doesn't matter whether like one side keeps shifting the goalpost, the one just keeps going onto the offensive and the other one is on the defensive, and the offensive always looks confident, looks like they're winning, and that's the problem.
The weird thing is,
yeah, and that's
no,
what they're looking for.
Yeah, because the weird thing is that like I still remember, like, what was it? My parents have always told me this. If somebody is just out there to hurt you, and I'm sitting there going like, I can't walk away from things on the internet anymore. I can't walk away from an argument. I can't just block people because I don't like their argumentation. I will sit down and I don't know, like I personally, and I'm not sure if anybody else does that. I'm just hoping that we all take care of ourselves a bit better than I do, maybe. But like, if somebody comes to me with bad faith arguments, I will sit and argue weeks sometimes. I've stopped doing this because I've just stopped actually talking to people very often. But like, it would be like that people would approach you and say, yeah, no, you're this and this and this and this, leftist, fucking
Commie
whatever,
pinko
whatever.
scum.
Yeah, I guess something like that, maybe.
Hmm.
And I'd be sitting there going like, but why? And then they would continue to sort of like throw attack after attack, and I'd be sitting there going like, but like, I mean, I'm trying to understand what you're getting at, and apparently the more I seem to not understand what they're saying, the more frustrated they get, and eventually they just leave me alone, which is good. I'm okay with this, but like I don't understand sort of why. Like I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to ask you about your personal views, and apparently it doesn't go deeper than answering the question why, and the answer is because. So it feels kind of schoolyard to me that the argument sort of goes like that. It's like, oh yeah, no, you're this and this and this, and you ask them why, and they say, well, because of this and this and this, and you ask them why again, and I don't know, like the answer isn't, it doesn't have the depth that it needs.
I think there's a lot of inherent like communication issues that happen in something like this, like branding, like online branding. I feel like people will follow you for different reasons, and part of that, like politics, like I've been followed for some of my shit posts, I've been followed for my political stuff, my LGBT stuff, my writing stuff, my fursuit stuff. All of these are different facets that people have interest in, but as soon as there can be a tendency anyway to not view these people as nuanced and balanced. So I get followed for my fursuit pics, and then people will drop me as soon as they find out that I'm left leaning or LGBT or something like that, because it's these invisible assumptions that we make about people who have a shared connection. And I think that's where they start to conflict with their ideas of what they want people to be, that they start coming into these confrontational questions like, well, like I actually had someone message me that I really like your fursuit, but I don't want this SJW stuff on my page. I'm like, well, you can unfollow me then, because this is who I am. You can get that kind of confrontation, but honestly, I see much more people in support, and I don't know if that's just because of the spaces that I kind of curate. But the other communication problem is, as I mentioned earlier, is that we treat communications as a win-loss. Then it's never a mutual gain to get understanding. People want to feel that they have a victory at the end of a conversation, or that an apology is a surrender. And that's something that we really have to get out of. I mean, that's probably also why I didn't really like the idea of a debate thing to begin with, because it presents the idea of a winner and a loser in like when everyone should be presented with information and something very authentic and honest, actually both gaining from that, or at the very least one side gaining something they didn't know.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
No. Wouldn't that like just? I know, like we use the word debate, but even then, like even in debates, and again, like I've been doing this for a couple of months / a couple of years. The idea of a debate is to just ensure that you're that and again, I've literally made, because I adjudicate rather than debate myself. As soon as I got to university, I apparently realized that, but like as an adjudicator or a judge, one of the things that people should sort of take into context is that it's not necessarily to say that a person who loses a debate loses on the fact that the merit of their debate is not strong enough. It's more along the idea that you set a question, or you set a particular sort of list of topics in your opening part of your debate. You start as your first speaker, for instance, or your prime minister, or whichever one you believe in. They set up a particular grouping of facts or pertained facts, and then the second speaker must oppose those facts or speak against whatever's being put forward there. So generally, it's a very sort of structured kind of way of doing this. And at the end of the day, as a person who is listening to the debate, you have to make a judgment call based on whether either your opening speaker and rest of the debate followed the way that the opening speaker said, and they managed to prove all of their points, and then whether those points were countered accurately and properly by the other person. It's not to say that it's not always fact based, because debates sometimes, depending on the what you call it, the
I don't know. What do you call it?
On the ability of the speaker, whether they have the sort of like at least base knowledge of being able to at least point, counterpoint, repoint towards something else. But I mean, the thing is that generally, straw men are not necessarily seen as arguments of good faith. The idea for and all of the talking points we talk about, like when it comes to like squirreling a debate, is another one, which I find really, really funny. By the way, squirreling means to narrow the debate to such a point that you're literally fighting over one point instead of a grouping of, because you as the opening speaker squirrel the debate, you've decided to put it into a hole and said this debate doesn't go any further than it's literally like starting a debate by saying the sky is blue, fight me. It's because you can't. Yeah, that means that you're actively destroying the debate from the very beginning, and that's seen in the debating community as like not the thing to do. You need to have an open debate. You need to be able to have point counterpoint the entire way, and at that point it becomes this idea of a battle of wits as well as a battle of knowledge, rather than, for instance, and I've actually had this happen in debates. One student, because sometimes you're allowed to prepare before debates, one student brought a newspaper, and literally, I think it was at that point the finance minister's speech on the budget. He took out his newspaper. He opened the newspaper. He read the statistics. And there is a wonderful thing about debating. I'm sure if you haven't heard this one yet, but there are lies, damn lies, and there are statistics.
You used that one quite a few times.
I love it, but it's that kind of thing. Like, it has to be good faith, and it's something that I think that we as furries, as anybody within the spectrum, any kind of commentator, should take that into account. And it's just maybe it's just the way that we're putting ourselves out there. Like the idea of pointing a finger and saying that's not right necessarily. You're wrong, and why? Give me a list. Give me something that I can sort of sit down and pour over for a while and say, well, what you're saying is bullshit or not. And here's why.
I mean, the rules of debate and the structuring of it is all very well. The problem is with what is that the things that are important, the things that have really come to light as big talking points in the community are things like protection, personal protection, and identity. And these things are not really up for debate. You can't say that these people aren't valid, or that they're not, or that they don't exist, or they shouldn't be able to express themselves if they want to, in a harmless way. I'm not saying that there are people like zoophiles or Nazis or anything like that should, because these debates and things are they are actually a legitimate attack on people who want to, where they don't in a very real sense in the rest of the world. And you get these kind of intra-community fights as well, like LGBT people who are acephobic or are transphobic, things like that. Even within the community, it's the structuring of a debate is fine. I'm not really academic enough to follow the particulars of it, and it's philosophically, I'm sure it's very interesting and is very cool. But when it comes to someone who says husband or my boyfriend, or I want to surgery, or I just want to not be of any particular gender, and someone comes along and say, why do you think that? Why do you think that? It's not really faith argument, and that's where a lot of these arguments are, especially in this current political climate. It's not debate. It's not about a free speech. It's about protection of identities, and that will always be more important than a sense of it's actually what is right and what is safe for people.
But I mean, some people would argue, for instance, that saying something like that is also an infringement in and of itself. You're allowing these people this area, so why do they get it when I don't?
In what sense?
Like, for instance, I mean, and this is where I get different, is that entire idea that it's about protecting this group of people, but if it falls or flies against the abilities of another group of people, are they being protected?
Someone else's existence should not
Yes.
impinge on anyone else's. That's the point. But if these people believe that these, say, for example, incompatible with LGBT, the rights of fundamentalist Christians are not being impinged because they're not being forced to do anything, but they are the ones that hold power and influence over people who are saying that they can't live as they want, even though they have nothing to do with them.
Yeah,
but it goes back to that sense of this isn't about both ideas. You can be fundamentalist Christian and LGBT people can exist. These can both happen.
Yeah,
but the balance of authority and identity is not even, and LGBT people, they don't really care whether you are, a lot of them have really been hurt by religion, but they just want people to leave them alone so they can live as they want. But it's the other people who are constantly encroaching on their territory, saying you can't do this, you can't do this. It's not. It's very, very one-sided.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people don't realize that giving marginalized groups more rights it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like you lose something because of that. Fundamentalist Christians aren't going to have to sit and watch a gay couple make out or something like that. They're not going to be forced to do that. They might run into it, but that's still not going to it's not going to impinge on your ability to go to church every Sunday and make a donation to the church and worship whatever God you choose to worship. It's just I don't know. I don't get why people can't see the fact that it's not a zero-sum game. The pie doesn't get smaller when other people are allowed in, or given the rights, given help, space, representation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. But they see that as, it's like when you have there's no competition for your own authenticity, and there's no competition for creativity and stuff like that. This is your another existence, as see them as an inherent threat, or they're going to take something away from me by being over there. And I think we need to get over that sense of othering and alienation, and actually looking at it from other people's perspective. They say, why does there have to be a lesbian relationship in this show or whatever like that? It's okay, well, why does there have to be a hetero relationship in pretty much every single TV story, movie production that ever has been? And you're saying that, okay, well, I guess gay people can exist, but just not anywhere where I could potentially ever see them. That's still not really giving anyone any leeway to be themselves and have the same freedom that everyone else does. A lot of these people who claim free speech aren't necessarily is freedom for just themselves and freedom from consequences of that, because they've had this power, and suddenly they're being questioned, actually that's really shitty and it's always been shitty, and now you're being called out on it, and they're kind of like the kid grocery store, having a temper tantrum and throwing milk cartons everywhere because they realize that they're not able to pull their pants down and have a crap in the middle of the aisle anymore, even though they had been for the last like 2 weeks.
Mhm.
You know, it's that sense of, it's that same kind of mentality of do what I want anymore. And
Yeah.
when what you want is actually directly hurting other people, you should never have been able to do it in the first place.
Yeah. But Ark, think of the children. Sorry, I
Like-
needed to do that. Like it's
A kid's guy. I mean, I like dogs.
yeah.
Mm.
Same.
How about you think about your kids first? I don't know.
It's
salty.
it is it's a salty thing. It's something to be salty about. Like it's this entire idea that like it's not like what I'm saying, what I want to say or like that is going to impact you in any particular way. It may push you away from something, and that's good. That's fine. You can have you do you. You go and unless it hurts someone, go do whatever the hell you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Or it's illegal. Yeah. But then
Yeah,
again, we can
if-
always we can argue about legality, especially when it comes to particular green substances, at least for now. Because then the secondary argument would probably be something along the lines of, well, if weed's allowed, what about cocaine?
Yeah, and that's the slippery slope is such a stupid argument.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
actually, like these two different things. Like, okay, this has these effects. This is way up there. Like, we're not going to suddenly jump from like 50 feet to 100 feet of like. And it's just, but the problem is a lot of these issues are ones that have been steeped in this kind of fundamentalist traditionalism for years and years. That, you know, it's this kind of hangover of like and repression and stuff like that that shouldn't really, was only an issue because of the power structures that were in play in the first place. And now we're kind of to break those down. The people who are entrenched in them are freaking out because they don't have their boxes anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're starting to see like cracks of light, and they don't like it. They want to be vampires in their little boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Ghouls, that's what they are.
Heaven forbid the sexual spectrum is not black and white. Heaven forbid.
Mhm.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, like it's that like labeling and sort of, I don't know, it has its ups and it has quite a few downs as well, but it doesn't help to sort of, like, I can kind of understand that people get pissed off at the whole like there are 40 something genders now argument, because people like to label stuff and that's not helpful all the time. Like, I get that people fall somewhere in a different kind of like different spectrums of the whole like gender argument. That is a thing, but it's, people just see this as like unnecessarily boxing in and another like norm that they have to conform to, that people have to say, good day, what's your preferred pronoun? They see that as an imposition upon themselves, kind of thing.
I mean, you are someone that name when you meet them anyway. So there's not really much of a like, oh, you're whatever, you know, what are your pronouns?
Yeah.
It's not really that much. It's not really that much of an imposition, but people think it is because they're so used to this idea. It gets harder the older you get. Like, the sooner you teach this to people when they're younger, the less of a problem it is. And that's why I think that a lot of the older generations are freaking out about millennials, as they call them, but are actually like Generation Z, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the one just after
People
us.
learn that they can be something that is not conforming, and they go, oh, right, cool, well, I can actually be this or this or this, or I don't know what I am yet, and that's totally cool.
Mhm.
You know, the more that older people are like, oh, that's just rubbish, that's not what this is, I'm not going to do that. And it's not necessarily because, it's just because they're lazy, or they're scared, or they just don't know how to think outside of what they've already been taught. Kind of, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Sometimes the dog just wants to bite your foot off.
Yeah, very much.
I was sent an article here by listeners was sort of talking about, and I think I sent a chat in here as well.
Yeah, I saw.
But I mean, there's, I think, a difference in respect to what's being asked for and spoke here versus something else. And I don't know, like it was the 90s when I first sort of, well, because I was obviously smart enough to be able to get this. No, but like it was this was probably one of the first times that I sort of dealt with this kind of idea. Why is it that I can say this but can't say this? And the question, of course, is, and honestly, as far as I can tell, it should just come down to personal preference. And it's one of the things that I think I employ in my classes quite a lot, is that I always tell my students, I am going to say things that may not necessarily agree with what you think, anything on that kind of line. If it bugs you, you're more than welcome. Come to me and say, look, please don't do this. And I won't do it. But I wouldn't know if you didn't tell me. And that's probably one of the issues here. I've got classes small enough to be able to sort of have that kind of policy, but I can understand why it'd be difficult in a group, 300 to 3,000 students or anything like that, to not have that same sort of narrative. But the thing is that like it does sometimes limit the amount of things that one can say. It's just about it, and really it is, I don't know, taking a vote at times, figuring out like, do you want me to do this and do you want me to do that? Eventually the question's going to come like, if I'm not allowed to do all of these things, do I need to change my entire sort of spiel? And the answer should most probably be yes. Like, if you want to continue doing what you need to do, just, figure out what it is that people, and the people who majoritively have to listen to you, because this is in classes, for instance, the answer should technically be yes. If they don't respond to you, then there's something that you're doing wrong, which means that you have to look and find out what it is that you're not doing right. It's one of the things that I do practically every other month in my class. Am I still doing the right thing? Students, please tell me. Do you want me to teach like this? I can teach like this. You want me to teach like that? I can teach like that. Just tell me what I need to do in some senses. So I give students that agency in some senses. Like, I'm still in control of what I'm doing. If they want to have more, because I'm doing the whole linguistics thing, if they want to have more South African examples, I'll go out of my way to find more South African examples, irrespective of whether the question papers are going to ask them more South African examples or not, because the examples themselves give them the understanding to then sort of take that information and go, oh, okay, I understand now. That is relevant. And I don't know. It's Ark. Go.
Still here. We're listening.
Yeah, I know. I'm
I'm
rambling.
coming in and out a little bit, but I'm still listening closely as I can.
I'm sort of like asking for your input.
What you're saying is all kind of it comes down to that need for introspection and like, tell me if I'm, that's the right thing to do, is to be open to change and communication. But when you're saying when people, and this is again goes back to the issue of some of the furry drama we have, is when people don't have that and someone approaches them and say, hey, could you perhaps, or actually my pronouns are this, and people react in a abrasive or combative way because they feel that a request is an attack.
Yeah,
that's when you get this kind of big argument, and you get the screenshot dunking, and you get all this kind of stuff, because people assume the best, or not even that. It's just a sense of there's no reason to react badly to someone saying, actually, my pronouns are this. Or if someone has built an art style out of underage minors, that's a bigger problem, because that's not just a one-off thing.
Yeah.
but if they start to see their audience dwindling from that, if they want to continue to be an artist, the smart thing for me to do is to go, okay, you know what? I'm washing my hands of that for a while, but I get that this is very upsetting for some people. That should be the kind of attitude that we have if we really want to be part of this community and not just like exploiting it or like taking advantage of it without. Nobody should be contributing negatively to the groups that they're part of. If they're doing that, whether it's in the rhetoric that they throw out or the art they produce or the content they produce, if they're not giving a net benefit, it's not good for the community. And the problem is when you have these people that assume that everything furry is good content or everything this is good content, and count that the people who are actually hurt by it, it kind of is a net negative. If you have neutral and negative, then that's not a good.
Yeah.
People are so invested in the idea of furry being a niche fandom that is so like tightly wound that removing one pin will make it all explode. It's not like that anymore. I don't know if it was ever really like that, because everyone is independent artists who generate their own audiences and their own work and have all very distinct visual styles. We're not at that point where we really need to be holding on to everyone as closely as we did. Like in a personal sense, sure, have as many close friends and polyams and stuff like that as you want, but we don't need idols who are not prepared to listen to
criticism.
Hey, the fandom is changing. We need something a little bit different now. Are you going to be with us? Are you going to lead that, or are you just going to kind of kick us all to the curb and say, I do what I want, and then off whatever,
Yeah, and then just hurt everyone in the process.
Yeah, and it's very admirable for someone to go tell me if something's wrong, but it's also very intimidating for people who have done that before and had a bad reaction, especially from someone who there is that sense of this big person could try and screenshot me and send harassers after me, because that happens to a lot of people who approach right-wing commentators. There's always this sense of, had it done to me twice, I think. Was it twice?
How did you deal with it?
I freaked out at first. That wasn't really dealing with it. But then I blocked and reported it. It was this guy. He's kind of he's had his Twitter account banned and rebanned many, many times. It's called Scrum. I started getting all these awful gamer types in my mentions because he screenshotted one of my tweets. It was something like, every time a Nazi gets punched, a furry gets their fursona. And obviously he didn't like that because he's pretty much a neo-Nazi. So, or has enough of them in his audience to know who he needs to appeal to.
Yeah.
That's when I started going, okay, I know that as a writer, I'm trying to appeal to the biggest furry audience I can, but for my personal safety and those of the people around me, I don't want these people around. So that's when I really started getting into block lists and just going block. Because as much as it is about finding your own success, it's about safety and identity as well. And I don't want to be everyone to buy a copy of my book, but I also know that there are going to be people who I would not want to sell my book to, if that makes sense. But if someone came up to me and said I don't like the way you say this or that, to what they say, and if I felt it was viable, if I felt it was all right, that's fair, I've used this ableist term too much, or I'm not addressing race properly, I would go, okay, cool, because there are people around who need that. I want to be part of these spaces, and I want to be a good presence for them.
Yeah. The weird thing is, I mean, you look at somebody like Pepper, for instance, especially Pepper and Fox and More. like you look at the two of them, and you look at the kind of success that they've had over the last couple years. Honestly, they've been around for goodness knows how long. They've moved with the times, and they've been perfectly fine. Been able to sort of grow even more, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, particularly because I think, and I mean, like Pepper is very very vocal on his accounts about where he stands on things, and he's at this point one of the most popular sort of artists. Well, I mean, musical artists, him and Fox,
Yeah.
around. And I think because of the sort of amount of positivity that sort of area, it's what garners like at least a whole group of extremely positive people. And far be it from this idea that they have or anything pulled over their eyes because of these people. No, they're very very chilled, very very down to earth. They speak to practically anything and anyone, so long as it doesn't come with, again, that entire idea of a secondary and ulterior motive to what they're doing. And I think it's people like that who sort of who know what's up. And it's something that I mean, it's something that I see in you, of course, as well. We wouldn't be speaking to you otherwise sometimes, because you have that sort of you have that openness to you, that entire idea of like, and that's honestly like, come in good faith, I'll argue with you, done, okay, can we move on from here, can we go into the next argument? Because it's weird to say that I don't mind enjoying, especially if they're done with, this is my personal view. I might see this, and this, and this wrong in it. So that means that you've shown, what's the word? You've shown the ability to self-reflect. And I think honestly, if we can just self-reflect a little, we're at least 20 to 30 steps further to fixing a large amount of problems.
Yeah, definitely. But a lot of people don't want to self-reflect because it's painful. People don't like seeing, like, holy shit, I have been a dickbag my entire life.
I find that very difficult to, I think, swallow as an idea, particularly because we love pain a lot more than I think we're willing to let on. Particularly because we can show I am hurt a lot better than we can show I've gotten better.
I mean, that's we do remember things that like hurt us probably more than we remember things that make us happy.
All right. Yeah.
On a larger sense. Something else I was going to say and I can't remember it. There can be a romanticization sometimes of pain, and that's not good. And I think that there are of. No, I don't even think that's right. I was going to say something and I disagreed with it partway through.
Self-reflection, yeah.
Self-reflection is awesome. You should be the example that you want to see.
Yeah.
Be the change. It's very hard sometimes to combat cynicism because cynicism is usually a product of experience. Or sometimes attitude, or sometimes both. But I think that the skepticism is only defeated by being what you don't believe there will be in the world.
Yeah.
I think that we need to, if we have good examples around us that we want to be like, I mean, you don't have to do it all at once because sometimes that is too much. Sometimes it's too much to hope for something. Sometimes it's too much to be upbeat, and sometimes it's just not going to happen. So, but I think as long as you have in mind want to see, then you have something to start working towards.
Absolutely. I think obviously we're running into the last 5 minutes of the show here. I was wondering, is there anything that you'd like to sort of like say to the people who are either going to listen to us on YouTube or here on the show itself, for those listening in the live chat? Is there any kind of extra information that you want to talk about, like plugging anything that artists or you yourself is coming up? Obviously, it's a book you spoke about early. in the show. But yeah, you have as much time as you want to be able to just plug and then talk about future projects.
Oh no! Oh, I'm terrible at self-marketing.
You're welcome.
the,
Have the seat.
oh, I don't want it. Okay.
Otherwise,
Uh,
just end off with a nice positive message. If you really don't feel like self-promoting, just end us off with a nice positive message.
Well, I mean, I have books. I write books. I write furry books. They're young adult. I wrote them because they were the stories that I would have loved when I was young, and I think that conducting yourself is to be the person that you needed when you were young too. In all senses, be the protection, be the kindness, be the compassion and the creativity that have. You got the freedom. You've got more freedom than you think. And if you're in a situation where taken away, find good people to surround yourself with to help you become that. Let's hope. Keep going.
That's a good message.
Very, very good message.
Yeah, and that's our time, I think.
Yes, that's around about it. Thank you very much for joining us again on the show. Really do appreciate the work you do, and this was a fun chat. I personally really enjoy having talks like.
I like arguing about arguing.
Yeah.
Meta argument.
Done.
Fucking hell.
I swear to goodness, I'm gonna open it up next.
Okay. You know, I can
yeah,
control when we go online, right? I can just tell you, like, no.
You need to have it on a delay so that when you hear that noise, you can just like mute it for that part of the broadcast. And
I
then
should. I really should.
it would just be like dead air for that second. Thank you guys for having me. It's I really appreciate the chance to talk and just have fun. And I really like you guys. And
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being on. Like, in all honesty, we always love having people on who can sort of help spread a good word, help expand the minds of other people, all that kind of good shit. Like, you've given us a lot to think about and to chew on, and you stand for good principles, and that's the kind of people we're looking for.
Always.
yeah, well, I hope so. It's always a work in progress. There's always more I'm gonna need to learn, and I'm ready for it.
As we all are.
Yeah.
Hell, if you in my career specifically, if you don't keep learning, you just stagnate. In life as well, if you don't learn, if you don't adapt, you're gonna end up one of those racist old people telling kids to get off their lawn.
Yeah, if we have lawn anymore.
Yeah.
Get off my dead grass.
Get off my tiny patio.
Get off my balcony. Why are you even up here with 30 steps up? Jeez.
Get off my patch of volcano.
This is my lava.
I'll burn my feet if I want to.
Goddamn spinnakers.
All right, guys.
Alright.
We're gonna, for those of you who are listening, a little bit of music here in probably around about the next 5 or so minutes, and yeah, we're gonna be. It's mostly gonna be metal. So those of you who do like listening, get ready. You can put down your requests and things like that either in the live chat, or you can message me if you have any of my private, any of my contact details. I'm relatively defined. Thank you all for listening, and see you again next week.
Yep. See you guys around. Have a good evening.